You know that day when you wake up feeling good, full of energy, but you just have to talk to somebody for a few minutes and it feels like your soul has been drained. You don't even understand why, but suddenly you're tired, irritable, or discouraged. Well, this is no coincidence. There are people who suck your energy without you realizing it. And the worst part, they're much closer than you think. Sometimes it's that good friend, the concerned relative, or even someone who claims to love you, but who little by little wears you down. And I'm not talking about energy vampire in the mystical sense. I'm talking about common people of flesh and blood who uses guilt, drama, victimhood, and competition to steal what is most precious to you, your peace. Alan Watts said that much of our suffering comes from allowing ourselves to be trapped by the emotions and expectations of others, and that's exactly what these types do. They pull you into their chaos while you think you're helping. In this video, I'll show you the 6 people who drain your energy every day without you realizing it, and when you understand who they are and how they operate, you'll feel a real relief, like a ton has been lifted off your shoulders. You'll learn to identify each of them, and most importantly, to shield oneself emotionally, because only when you understand who is stealing your strength can you regain control of your life. Stay until the end, because when I show you the 6th type, you will realize that perhaps the biggest energy thief is someone you never imagined. Now that you understand who's draining your energy, everything changes. From now on, no one will use you as an emotional repository. You'll begin to recognize who drains you and have the courage to set boundaries without guilt. This video opened your eyes to something few people have the courage to talk about, and that's why it's worth giving back. Like this video and subscribe to the channel, because here you'll learn what truly frees you. Clarity, strength, and awareness. Each new piece of content is another step toward living lightly, with clean energy, and surrounded only by what makes you feel good. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to carry a gray cloud wherever they go? People who, even without shouting or openly complaining, always have a but for everything. You tell them about an achievement and they say, "Oh, but be careful, okay?" You say you're going to try something new, and that suspicious look comes over you, almost reminding you that the world is cruel. These people are masters at draining energy without arousing suspicion. They're the eternal victims, the ones who live in the role of life's victims. Nothing works, no one understands, everything is someone else's fault. And the worst part is that in your attempt to help, you're dragged into the same emotional hole they live in. Alan Watts said that much of human suffering stems from resistance to reality. And that's precisely what the victimizer does. They constantly fight against what is, against life as it is. They want everything to change, but they don't want to change anything about themselves. And when you try to help, they pull you into their own resistance. It's like trying to save someone who's drowning. If you don't know how to hold on, they drag you down with them. How many times have you left a conversation with someone like this feeling drained, even without having argued? This happens because, unconsciously, you've spent energy trying to balance the emotions of someone who doesn't want balance, who wants attention. These people always have a sad story to tell, a new problem to get you involved. And of course, it's never their fault. It's the boss who persecutes, the partner who doesn't understand, the universe that conspires against them. They use suffering as their identity, and the more you feed this role, the more they depend on your energy to continue living it. And here's the point: few people understand. Victimhood is a disguised form of power. It's control through guilt. They make you feel bad for being well. They make you believe that being happy is selfish, that seeking your peace is abandonment, and without realizing it, you begin to mold yourself, dimming your light so as not to offend their shadow. But make no mistake, those who constantly victimize themselves don't want solutions. They want an audience. They want to be heard, but they don't want to change. And that's where you need to recognize the difference between helping and being sucked in. It's one thing to lend a hand, another to become a crutch. Because when you start solving the problems of someone who doesn't want to solve anything, you're robbing them of their only chance to grow. Watts used to say that suffering is a teacher, but the victim failed the class and prefers to repeat the same drama over and over again. And you, without realizing it, become their classmate in this repetition. Have you ever noticed how these people always find a way to strike up a conversation when you're having a good time? It's almost as if the glow of your joy bothers them, and it's not out of conscious malice. Often it's automatic. They can't stand to see someone vibrating high when they're drowning in their own pain, so they create a heavy atmosphere, start venting, and within minutes your vibration drops too. That's why, when you spot a pattern like this, the best thing you can do is set boundaries. It's not about being cold. It's about being responsible for your own energy. You don't need to save someone who refuses to step out of the victim role. And here's a tricky point. Sometimes the victim can be someone you love. A father, a mother, a childhood friend, a partner. And this makes everything more confusing because there's affection, there's history, there's a bond. But even in these cases, it's important to understand that love isn't synonymous with carrying a burden. You can love and maintain emotional distance. You can listen without becoming contaminated. You can care without wearing yourself out. Because when you're exhausted, there's nothing left, neither for you nor for those you want to help. And that's not selfishness, it's wisdom. A good way to deal with this type of person is to change your attitude. Stop responding with pity. Stop fueling the drama. If someone says, "My life is a disaster," don't play along by saying, "Poor you." Say, "I understand. And what can you do to change that?" You'll notice that when the victimizer realizes you're not an audience, they'll back off or start rethinking their behavior. And little by little, you'll regain your energy. Because energy goes where there's attention. And when you stop paying attention to the drama, it stops growing. And here's a curious thing. When you start to move away from these patterns, it seems like the universe tests your resolve. Someone new always appears with the same type of behavior, but this time, you see it. You feel in your body when something's wrong. And the most interesting thing is that when you refuse to be sucked in, you start to attract the opposite. People who are light, positive, who make you laugh, who leave you at peace. It's as if the universe is saying, "Now you get it." By the way, I want you to comment on one word here so I know you really understand this process. Right energy. Because that's the first step to breaking the cycle, being aware. And when you comment, you reinforce within yourself the commitment to take care of your own energy. But there's something even more subtle, and one that few people notice. Some of these energy thieves don't seem sad or defeated. On the contrary, they're cheerful, charismatic, and always seem to be doing well. But the effect they have on you is the same. An invisible fatigue, a feeling of emptiness. And it's this type of person we'll talk about next. Some people turn every situation into a competition. No matter what you do, they have to do better. You tell them you've started walking and they respond that they already run 10 kilometers a day. You tell them you're happy with your new job and they quickly point out that hers pays twice as much. And the strangest thing is that sometimes this competition is disguised as joke, motivation, or just wanting the best for you. But deep down, what's happening is a slow and steady drain on your energy. It's as if you constantly have to prove that you're good, enough to be accepted. Alan Watts said that the ego thrives on comparison, and the more you compare, the further you move away from peace. These people compete for everything: attention, status, recognition, even suffering. If you're tired, they're exhausted. If you tell them you have a headache, they've had a migraine for 3 days. It's a never-ending battle, and the price is your emotional energy. The worst part is that, over time, you start to act differently around them. You avoid sharing your victories so as not to seem boastful. You pretend to be bad to avoid arousing envy. And little by little, you adapt to a pattern where being authentic is dangerous. It corrodes you. You constantly control yourself, mince your words, trying to maintain balance so as not to awaken the other person. And that's how your energy drains, not because of something they did to you, but because of the constant effort to protect yourself. The competitor doesn't seek connection. He seeks a stage. He needs to feel a little better than you to feel valid. And that's the trap. Inside, he's empty. Comparison is the crutch that props up the fragile ego. Alan Watts said that the human mind created the game of me versus other, and the more we play, the more we lose the present. Because those who live comparing are trapped in the illusion that happiness lies in beating someone else, not in feeling at peace with who they are. And when you enter this game, even if only to defend yourself, you've already lost, because you begin to vibrate on the same frequency. A simple way to realize you're around someone like this is to notice how you feel afterward. Conversations with healthy people inspire you. lighten your spirits. With a competitor, you leave feeling drained, tense, and a little guilty, sometimes for no reason. They may even compliment you, but there's always a hidden but. It's the famous, "You look great, but did you see so-and-so? They achieved something even greater." This but carries the seed of comparison, and it's this that begins to erode your energy without you even realizing it. And the worst part is that this type of behavior is contagious. Being around someone who competes all the time makes you compete too, even if you don't want to. You start measuring your life by others' standards, and that's the first step to losing the joy in what you do. And that's why learning to recognize this pattern is liberating. When you understand that true evolution has nothing to do with competition, you begin to break out of the cycle. Competition may even generate results, but it never generates peace. Watts said that those who understand the game stop playing. And when you stop playing, the other person loses control over you. It's almost magical. A competitor needs an audience. Without an audience, they become empty. So the secret isn't to fight or prove anything, it's to not react. It's to look, smile, and move on, because the lack of reaction is what breaks the cycle of comparison. But it's important to say these people aren't always bad. Often they were raised in an environment where love was conditioned by performance. They learned that they would only be valued if they were better, faster, stronger. So, what today seems like arrogance is actually fear of not being good enough. And while understanding this generates empathy, it doesn't change the fact that being around them is tiring. So your job isn't to fix them, but to protect yourself. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to beat anyone. Life isn't a race, it's a journey. And everyone has their own time, their own pace, and their own destiny. And now I want to know from you, have you ever lived with someone like this, who turns everything into a fight? Comment on the word freedom here so I know that you're determined to get out of this game, because when you comment, you reinforce to yourself that you want to live lightly, without needing to win to feel at peace. But there's an even more dangerous type, the one who doesn't compete, doesn't complain, but controls you under the guise of an advisor. It's the type who uses the "I only want the best for you" message to make you doubt yourself. And this, my friend, drains your energy in an even more subtle way. You know that person who always has an opinion about everything you do, who only wants the best for you, but is always pointing out what's wrong, what you should change, what isn't quite right? Well, this type specializes in making you doubt yourself. Sometimes they speak sweetly, sometimes with an authoritative tone, but the result is always the same. You start to feel like you need their approval to live a peaceful life. They're advisors disguised as controllers, people who make you believe they're helping you when in reality, they're manipulating you emotionally to follow their lead. The problem is that control, when disguised as care, is the hardest to spot, because it sounds loving and protective. It's that friend who says, "I'm just being honest," but always cuts you off. It's the relative who says, "I told you so," but never supports you. It's the partner who says, "Trust me, I know what's best for us," but in practice, takes away your right to choose. These people drain your energy because they make you carry the weight of guilt and doubt, and there's nothing more energy-consuming than constantly questioning yourself. Alan Watts said that true freedom is living without fear of being who you are. But how can you be free when someone tries to decide even how you should feel? This type of person is subtle. They don't prohibit you, but they create guilt. They make you think twice before acting, before speaking, before being. Little by little, you begin to think less with your own head and more with the fear of other people's judgment. And the worst part is that this control infiltrates everything. The clothes you wear, the decisions you make, the dreams you share. The controller wants you to confuse love with obedience. They want you to believe that being loved means doing what the other expects. And what does they gain from this? Security, control, the illusion that by shaping you, they have power. But the cost to you is extremely high because every time you give up a choice to please someone, a part of you dies. It's as if your life force is cut into pieces, one for each time you said okay when you meant no. And that's when you start to feel that unwarranted fatigue, that heaviness in your chest, that feeling of living someone else's life. It's the price of emotional submission. Alan Watts explained that the ego loves to control the world around it because it fears the natural flow of life. And those who try to control you are dominated by the same fear, the fear of losing control, of facing their own emptiness when there's no one to dominate. Have you ever noticed how these people always need to be right? Even when they're wrong, they find a way to justify themselves. Because for them, admitting a mistake is losing power. They manipulate you with small phrases disguised as affection. I'm only saying this because I love you. You don't understand now, but it's for your own good. You're different, be careful not to lose yourself. These are words that sound affectionate, but in practice they act like invisible chains. And the more you try to explain your side, the more you seem ungrateful. This is what makes this type of relationship so draining. It traps you in guilt. And here's a truth that hurts but liberates. Those who truly love you want to see you free. They want to see you making decisions, making mistakes, learning. True love doesn't impose, it guides. It doesn't suffocate, it supports. When someone needs to diminish you to feel secure, it's not love, it's emotional dependence. And until you see this, you'll continue wasting energy trying to justify the unjustifiable. Watts said that spiritual maturity begins when you stop seeking permission to exist. And that's exactly what these advisors fear most. The day you no longer need them to know what's right for you. The best way to protect yourself is to stop over-explaining. The more you try to justify yourself, the more power you give to those who want to control you. Start saying, I understand your point, but I'll stick to mine. It's that simple. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. Your life isn't a debate. It's your journey. And every time you choose to be true to yourself, your energy returns. You feel lighter, you breathe better, you sleep better. Because nothing weighs more than living your life trying to fit into other people's expectations. And to make you think, comment the word here, freedom, because that's what this thread is about, reclaiming your emotional freedom. When you write this word, you're declaring to yourself that you'll stop shrinking to fit into other people's vision. But there's an even more dangerous type, and it seems the opposite. It doesn't try to control you, it doesn't give advice, and it doesn't even try to shape you. It just talks, and everything it says is negative. It wears the mask of a realist, but behind it, what it spreads is doubt, fear, and pessimism. And that's the type we're going to talk about now. You know that person who seems to have a dark cloud hanging over their head all the time? The one who, no matter the subject, always finds a problem in everything? You talk about a new project and they quickly cut you off. Oh, but that's too risky. You mention a dream and they reply, the world isn't that simple. These people tell themselves realistic, but in practice, they're experts at killing enthusiasm. They drain you because they make you doubt your own potential. Alan Watts said that fear is the greatest obstacle in life, and it's precisely this fear that the negative realist spreads disguised as advice. These people don't yell, they don't attack you. They act subtly with phrases that seem logical but hide pessimism. I'm just being honest. It's good to have your feet on the ground. Not everyone gets what they want. They believe they're protecting you, but in reality, they paralyze you. The energy you waste trying to justify yourself to someone who doesn't believe in anything is immense. And the cruelest thing is that the more you spend time with this type of person, the more you begin to absorb their way of thinking. Without realizing it, you begin to view life with the same skepticism, disbelieving what once motivated you. It's as if their negativity takes root within you. And the curious thing is that in many cases, these people love you. Their parents, siblings, friends, co-workers. They don't want to see you hurt. They want to see you safe. But their concept of safety is limited, shaped by fear. They've lived through bad experiences and believe everything will happen again. So, instead of inspiring, they project. They project frustration, regret, fear. And when you try to fly, they pull you back, telling you it's for your own good. But deep down, what they want is company on the ground, because seeing someone dream courageously bothers those who've given up on dreaming. Watts said that true realism isn't denying the impossible, but understanding that everything is in flux. The pessimist sees barriers, the awakened see a path. And when you begin to realize this, you understand that not every opinion deserves space in your mind. Of course, you can listen to advice, but you need to know who it's coming from. If it comes from someone who lives stagnant, trapped in fear, that advice is merely a reflection of what the other person feels, not reality. And therein lies the secret to protecting yourself. Stop absorbing everything as absolute truth. The best way to deal with this type of person is to observe, not react. When someone says, "This won't work," instead of arguing, smile. Leave. The person trapped in their own fear and go your own way. Don't try to prove anything, because in the end, success is the most silent and powerful response there is. Watts said that when you stop fighting life, it starts to flow in your favor. And this applies to relationships as well. When you stop trying to convince those who don't want to believe, the energy that was previously spent arguing returns to you. And the result is immediate. More clarity, more strength, more lightness. These people have a curious talent. They can turn even happy moments into something heavy. You talk about love and they remember disappointment. You talk about opportunity and they talk about risk. It's an endless cycle of doubts and blockages. And you know what hurts the most? It's that on the surface they seem rational. They convince you they're just opening your eyes, but in practice, they're extinguishing your light. Watts said that the human mind creates drama because it fears silence. Pessimists do this all the time, creating noise to avoid facing the void. So if you want to protect your energy, start selecting your conversations. Not every topic deserves an explanation. Not every criticism deserves a response. The further you distance yourself from those who live vibrating with doubt, the more life opens up space for people who vibrate with faith. And it's not blind faith, it's trust in the flow. It's knowing that, even without guarantees, it's worth trying rather than spending your life watching others live. And before we continue, comment here on the word faith. Write this word to reinforce within yourself that your energy goes where your belief is, and that from today on, you choose to believe in what expands you, not in what paralyzes you. But there's an even more difficult type to deal with, one who doesn't talk about fear or problems. They create their own chaos. These are people who thrive on drama and conflict, and if you let them, they'll drag you down with them. Some people seem to have a natural talent for living in the midst of chaos. They're the kind of people who, even when everything is calm, find a way to create trouble. There's always a problem, a fight, gossip, drama happening. And of course, they're always at the center of it all. You can even try to help, be understanding, offer a friendly shoulder. But as soon as you get close, you feel the weight. It's as if all their energy is focused on keeping the turmoil alive, and the more you try to bring peace, the more they become agitated. Alan Watts said that drama is the ego's favorite distraction, and that's exactly what this type of person does. They create stories to avoid facing their own emptiness. These people feed on other people's emotions. They need reactions. They need to see you get angry, cry, justify yourself. That's how they feel alive. When everything is calm, they get upset. They invent a crisis, provoke a conflict, bring up a topic that should have been buried. And the most dangerous thing is that they always have a ready-made line to appear innocent. "I just wanted to talk. You're the one who misunderstood. I just said what I felt." It's a subtle game of manipulation, where the goal isn't to solve anything, it's to keep the fire burning. And you, without realizing it, are being sucked into their emotional storm. The energy these people drain is absurd. After an argument with someone like this, it feels like you've run a marathon. You feel tired, mentally, exhausted, and want to isolate yourself. This happens because the brain goes into a state of alert, trying to understand what went wrong, trying to find meaning where there is no logic. Drama has this power. It traps you in a cycle of reactivity. Watts explained that the human mind loves to lose itself in stories because it avoids silence, and silence is where truth emerges. The dramatic person constantly runs away from this. They prefer tension to peace because in silence they would have to face their own flaws, their own fear of being alone. And there's another important point. These people tend to gravitate toward empathetic people. They sense from afar those with a good heart and feed on that energy. The more you try to understand, the more they pull you in. When you appear calm, they get irritated. When you try to solve the problem, they create another problem. It's a never-ending cycle. The only way to break this is to stop reacting. Don't engage in the war. Don't explain. Don't argue. Don't ask them to change. Silence in this case is the most powerful shield. When you refuse to play the game, they lose their power. And here's something few understand. You don't need to save anyone who chooses chaos. You can love and keep your distance. You can wish them well without carrying the burden. Because those who constantly create drama need pain to feel relevant, and as long as you allow it, you'll continue to be the stage for their storms. Watts said that balance only exists when you learn to observe without getting involved, and that's exactly what you need to do. Observe, understand, and step away. Have you ever noticed how, after you get rid of people like that, even the air feels different? You sleep better, think better, feel a relief you didn't even know you needed. This happens because your body understands the danger is over, that your emotional field is clear, and when this peace arrives, you understand how trapped you were in energies that weren't yours. From then on, life begins to flow in a new way, light, silent, true. Now you understand why you leave certain conversations exhausted and others at peace. This content opened your eyes to something few people realize. Your energy is your most valuable asset, and from now on you know exactly who might be draining it. If this video helped you better understand people, and most importantly protect yourself, then it was worth the time you spent here. Now you can give back to this transformation, like the video and subscribe to the channel, because that's how this message reaches more people who also need to wake up to this. Comment the word here, protection, to affirm that from today on, you choose to take care of your energy like never before. And stay tuned because the next video will show you the next step in this journey. How clean what's left and shield your mind once and for all. What comes next will strengthen you in ways you may not even imagine yet.